So, I analyze startups that launched after ChatGPT and also failed in this AI hype wave. It feels like after 2022, right after ChatGPT dropped, we entered an AI, an overall technological advancement revolution. Investors poured billions into startups. In 2023, $42.5 billion. In 24, $100 billion. In 25, $192 billion. And it's not even over yet. Every startup was slapping the word AI onto their product, and some useful, some useless. Even some existing startups completely changed their direction to focus only on AI. So I did some digging. I wanted to find AI startups that launched specifically during this hype wave and then died in it. While researching, it turned out that so many startups just shut down their operations without any public announcements. They just stopped posting, deleted their company pages, socials and everything, and completely disappeared. So it was really hard to find info on that, let alone reasons why they failed. So after hours and hours of digging through websites, socials and different pages and questioning my video topic, I was able to find 24 verified failed AI startups that launched after ChatGPT. I know it's not that many, but it's still worth it. We will focus on that, as well as some publicly available reports on failed AI startups. In this sheet, we have around 21 startups that are software, and another 3 were big hardware startups that failed during this hype wave. So first, let's talk about software startups. So most of the software startups lasted between a year or two, with funding between $200,000 to $4 million, with some exceptions like Digit, which lasted more than 3 years, with $7 million funding, and Build the AI, which lasted more than 2 years, with $250 million funding in 2023. You have probably heard of it. Coming back to the other startups, I noticed that most of them were built on top of foundation models. In less flattering term, we call them wrappers, and they don't usually have much higher margin than traditional SaaS tools. Traditional SaaS gross margin hover around 70 to 90% of Western-class companies, but for these types of AI startups, especially those using costly inference APIs or operating big models, margin tends to fall in the 50 to 60% range, sometimes even lower. So the more users you add, the higher the cost gets. And if you have a free tier, then the entire business model just runs on hope of converting users fast enough to outpace burn. Some will, but most won't. Whereas in traditional SaaS tools, that problem is almost non-existent. Recent research shows that these types of AI startups faced brutal unit economics. So compute and GPU costs are insane. Many burn hundreds of thousands to millions per month on API calls without any matching revenues, operating with higher burn rates. And when they run out of money and feel to raise more, they eventually shut down. This is one of the biggest reasons for failures in this list. Startups like superace, InsurTech and others crashed mostly for this reason. It was one of the biggest factors behind their failures, as well as the biggest factors according to industry reports. Well, going through all these reports, you want to actually understand key points instead of scrolling through hundreds of pages of jargon. And to get the most out of that report, make sure to use tools like updf that handles all the PDF related works. Its AI assistant is supported by ChatGPT 5 and DeepSeek, the useful one, okay? Hear me out. For example, I have this massive white paper report by Stanford. Normally going through something like this would take me hours, but with updf, I can ask it to summarize the report and it gives me a clean, well-structured information of important points. But my favorite feature is this PDF to mind map. It converts these dense pages into clear visual flowcharts. You can actually see how the concepts connect. If you want something more research focused, they also have Scholar research feature. Just tell exactly what you're looking for and it will bring all the relevant papers and related studies. And if you already have multiple PDFs, you can also upload them all at once and interact with them together, ask questions across documents, generate mind maps or get combined summaries. UPDF also has the important tools you would expect, like adding passwords and digital signature, reordering pages, deleting pages you don't need, and insert new ones. When you are reading, you can also highlight sections, add notes or switch the screen or turn on eye protection mode when reading for a long time. It's free to download, and if you buy one license, you can use it across Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, all 4 devices. And it still costs about 1/6 of the price of Adobe Acrobat. You can grab UPDF with Cyber Monday special offer using the link in the description or the pinned comment. Thank you UPDF for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the video. Eventually, funding wasn't the main issue that most of the startups failed. The number one reason the majority of the startups failed was because of lack of product market fit. So building products that nobody wants. Like Artifact, they did multiple pivots from NewsRadar to Twitter-like to Pinterest-like just to find the market. It was eventually shut down because the market opportunity wasn't big enough for them to continue investment. Same with CodeParent, funded by YC in 2023 with $500,000. They burned through it all while pivoting multiple times and eventually shut down July this year. At their final pivot, they were generating $1,500 a month in revenue, but they couldn't break through it, so they decided to shut down their operations. Other startups include Lowlight, Settle AI, 90, Booth AI, and the Gist, and the others. So in total, 9 startups in this list, that's around 43% shut down because of lack of product market fit, which lines up perfectly with industry reports. According to recent Stanford research, 41% of YC AI startups are building in low priority and red light zones, so areas with limited market potential where workers don't actually want AI solutions. Well, no wonder. If you want to know more details on what kind of products are YC is funding, then you can check out this video. And now, according to Caterham, overall, 43% of AI startups failed because of lack of product market fit. For example, the Lowlight founder literally said he was building a solution to a problem that doesn't actually exist. It looks like during this hype wave, many founders built AI products just for the sake of building anything AI related. A lot of the time, founders ended up with products that looked good on paper but failed in real world settings because they didn't solve a painful problem. That doesn't mean that AI isn't creating any value. It just means that we're in a gold rush phase. Everyone is building, and when that happens, most projects just collapse under their own hype. Only a few survive. And the failure rate in AI startup is much higher than traditional SaaS tools. You can only imagine just 1 out of 10 AI startups succeed and other 9 just fails. That's basically the reality. Now, let's talk about big hardware failures. We have got 3 hardware AI startups in this list. The first one is Forward Health. This company was actually founded in 2017 but launched their product called CareBots in November 2023. It was basically an AI-powered medical kiosk that's supposed to deliver healthcare without doctors. Roughly the size of a small room designed to sit in malls, offices, gyms. You would step inside and its medical sensors, touchscreens, cameras, and AI software would perform basic health screening without any doctors. Brilliant and futuristic, and also kind of terrifying at the same time. For this kind of futuristic tech, you would obviously need massive funding. So they raised around $100 million, including $5 million from OpenAI in 2023, with total lifetime funding of $650 million. They announced that they were planning to launch 3,200 CarePods in a year. Can you guess how many they actually launched after a year? Take a guess. 5? Yes, just 5. It turned out that machine was expensive to build, costing around $1 million per CarePods, while selling it just for $99 a month to consumers. On the top of that, they had many technical issues like failed plot draws, sensor problems, patients getting stuck inside. So, the 2 main reasons they failed. The first one is it was impossible unit economics. The business model didn't make any mathematical sense. They built Rolls-Royce and tried to sell the tickets for the price of a bus ride. Second is defective technology. For other specific reasons, they couldn't scale or raise funds and shut down. And more or less, that's the same story with the next startup, which is Human AI Pin. You have probably heard of it or at least seen it somewhere. It was a wearable AI assistant meant to replace your phone. It had so much hype but ran into the same problem as Forward Health. Several hardware and software issues, didn't offer anything better than what we have in smartphones, and it costed $700 with additional $24 monthly subscription. At that price, you would get a flagship Android and it would save few $100s a year. So it didn't have any clear use case. And they eventually sold some parts like the IP, assets, and team to HP in early 2025 just for $160 million, even though their peak valuation had reached $850 million, far more than what they ended up selling for. Now, the last AI hardware startup, which is K-Scale Labs. They built open source humanoid robots funded by YC. They shut down in late 2025 primarily because they were out-manufactured by China. While K-Scale was selling their robots for $10,000 to $15,000, Chinese competitor like Unitree offered better and faster robots for $6,000, with entry-level models dropping as low as $3,000. They needed massive funding to build factory to lower their prices, and since they couldn't land lead investors, they shut down. So overall, in these hardware startups, we have mix of reasons for failures. First, there is funding issues. This was secondary reason for Forward Health and K-Scale Labs. They both eventually ran out of cash. But the primary reasons were different. For Forward Health and Human Pin AI, the main killer was product failures. They simply built defective devices that didn't deliver on their promises. And finally, K-Scale Labs had a unique primary reason, which is competition. While in the software side, the main reasons were second, funding, and the first, the majority of the startups failed because lack of product market fit, with some other reasons tied to these two like competition and co-founders misalignment. I know the sample size is pretty small, just tip of the iceberg. But we also compared it to industry reports and it gives a pretty good idea of what is happening in the space and how AI startups are failing and what you can learn from it. And that's it. If you think this video was helpful and valuable, let me know in the comments and see you on the next one.